What's going on, Skullbrains? Welcome back to Skullbrain TV. How do Richard, Orkin, and Melik survive the fierce explosion of Loktar's tomb? We're about to find out in the next episode of The Ancestral Trail.
When he, who is the chosen one, shall tread upon the ancient path, and battle there to overcome
the forces of the dark.
The Ancestral Trail, an epic story of myths, magic, and monsters. Book 23, Dagmar, Demon of Fire, Flames of Fury over Yellowstone Peaks.
Yes, in the last episode, the trio was separated when Melik hurtled down a slippery slope and disappears into a trapdoor. In the search for their companion, Richard and Orkin discover the Great Pyramids of Loktar. After entering the pyramids, they find themselves in an ancient burial chamber. In search for the next life force pod, they encounter a three-headed creature named Zyton. However, when Richard opens the tomb of Loktar and the beast flees, Melik arrives and warns them not to open the tomb as it activates what's called the Curse of Loktar, a self-destruct mechanism for the pyramid. Too late. With Loktar hot on their heels, the three make a hasty escape, but not before being blasted into the air as the self-destruct sequence completes its activation. So, how do they survive, and what danger awaits our heroes next? Before we find out, let's go over the ancestral challenges for this issue. Keep another eye out for Shumi and Shubi. You'll need to locate a fragment of the Evil One's mask, and as you listen to the story, see if you can hear the hint for what life force pod Richard found in Loktar's tomb. Stick around till the end, and I'll reveal the answers. As for Morbane's Monsters and Magic Challenge, you can find a link to the cards for this episode in the description below, and after listening to the story, see if you can guess who Dagmar is based on, the Chimera or the Sphinx. In the last episode, if you guessed that Loktar was based on Geryon, you were correct. One last thing, I was invited to experiment with an AI voice changer and decided to give it a try on one of the characters in this episode. As much as I love to experiment with character voices, it gets a little tricky at times, so thank you Altered AI for allowing me to use the platform to try something a little different. This is not sponsored by Altered AI, I just wanted to give them a shout out. Okay, it's time to get on with the next chapter. Are you ready? Let's do this.
On the 23rd day, beware the fire from demons sprung, by the bridge so weakly slung. From the danger bravely run, the fight has only just begun. Remember well what legends say, there is a green hill far away. The path you seek, as hard you may, but evil 'tis that rules the day.
Richard, Melik, and Orkin spun helplessly upwards on the current of hot air. Richard saw Earth flashing past on either side. Then, he was out in the open. The hot jet died and the trio thudded down on the ground. A short distance away from them lay a wide expanse of freshly turned soil. They had been blown out of the pyramid, even as it disappeared underground. Let's have a look at the next riddle, Richard said after they had caught their breath. They read from the Book of Prophecies, then trudged off towards a range of stony yellow mountains. Before long, the three arrived at a deep chasm spanned by a rope bridge, whose thick cord supported a series of wooden slats. The slats looked sound enough, although some were cracked. It was the only way across, so the trio would have to chance it. Orkin took a few cautious steps forward. "I think it'll be okay," he said as the bridge bounced slightly under his weight. Richard and Melik stepped onto the bridge. Looking down, they saw a white torrent swirling and foaming over black rocks far below. The bridge swayed gently as the three made their way across. Then, halfway over, the worst happened. The ropes holding the wooden slats in place seemed to turn to dust, and the boards began falling into the void below. Then, with a loud report, the ropes holding the bridge behind them broke loose from the cliff and swung slowly down into the chasm. "Grab hold of this rope!" Richard shouted. The three grabbed the rope as it swung down and across the abyss. As the cliff face slammed up to meet them, the other rope broke free and slithered down the cliff like an enormous snake. Luck was still on their side. The three clung like limpets to the dangling rope. Its massive girth had shielded them from the full force of the collision, but they still felt the shockwaves. Slowly and painfully they pulled themselves up the rope. At any second they expected it to come loose and hurl them to the ground, but soon the edge of the cliff was within Richard's reach. He stretched up his arm, but before he could haul himself over, a stream of fire shot out of the sky and splattered against the rock face. Richard craned his neck and saw a jagged shape flash through the gorge. As the speeding red blur swooped up into a steep turn, he got a closer look at the creature. Its body was covered in red scales, and backward-sloping horns jutted out of its head. A constant gust of flame shot out from its sharp-toothed snout. The creature leveled out and screamed past them. A second jet of flame seared into the cliff. So close to the trio, the rope began to smolder in several places. The creature banked in preparation for a third dash. The three braced themselves for the final swoop. Then they heard a shrill battle cry, which was quickly followed by a piercing shriek. Richard looked up to see two creatures in a burst of flames. High in the air, the trio's sharp-winged attacker was dodging and ducking to escape a vast, fiery-plumed bird. Both combatants spat flame at each other, the attacker in fat red streams, the newcomer in sharp, brilliant blue thrusts. For an instant, Richard was too astonished to move. Then he regained his wits and hauled himself over the cliff edge. He helped Melik and Orkin up in turn, and they hid among the rocks to watch the battle. At times, the sky was filled with multicolored fire. Then it was pinpricked with blazing starbursts of light. When the fighting was at its closest, the spectacle condensed into a tight fist of smoke. When it broke, it did so in volcanic columns of flame. At the heart of it all swirled the two combatants, each trying to blast each other out of existence. The creature who had attacked the trio was the first to break. It put its wings back and shot like a bullet over the horizon, while the victor wheeled in triumph. Then the bird swooped towards them and landed gently on the cliff.
"Thank goodness I got here in time,"
said a soft, feminine voice.
"I am Dion, the Firebird.
She glanced at the rope which hung limply in the chasm.
You had a narrow escape. I should have been here sooner. Oganga sent me to help you in your search."
"What was that thing that attacked us?" Richard asked, relieved to hear that Oganga had survived his battle with Boltor.
"Dagmar, the evil one's demon of fire,"
she replied.
"He's powerful and vicious. We must move on as soon as we can."
"Do you have any news of Golan?" Richard asked eagerly.
"Many of our forces have joined him outside the Ancestral city, and more are on the way,"
Dion said.
"Jarut managed to overcome Zok, the cannibal chief, and after that, his dwarf forces came back to our side. What about you? Everything rests on your success."
"There's just one more pod to find," Richard said with pride.
"Oh, good. I can help you with that,"
Dion said.
"There is a pod at Wizard's Well, but to get there you must find a way through Sorcerer's Falls."
Before Dion could finish, they heard the fierce beating of wings approaching. The four looked up just in time to dodge the jet of flame which shot from Dagmar's beak. When they next lifted their heads, the evil one's fire demon was hunched on a nearby crag, watching their every move with malevolent purpose. Dagmar began to cackle with hideous laughter, picking up boulders as if they were mere toys and hurling them into the chasm below. He uncovered the lair of a small mountain creature. It scuttled away, a round ball of stripy fur that resembled a cross between a rabbit and a badger. Dagmar sneered, then struck out with one of his taloned claws. Richard thought that the creature had escaped with nothing more than a graze. He soon learned that Dagmar's talons were full of poison, and was horrified to see the little creature shriek in pain and fall to the ground, writhing in agony. Richard and Orkin drew their weapons as Dagmar directed a torrent of liquid fire at them. Orkin strung his bow and started firing a steady stream of arrows at Dagmar. Although every missile struck its target, Orkin was surprised to see that the fire demon remained unhurt. His only response was to splash yet more jets of flame in their direction.
Your arrows are useless against Dagmar.
Dion said.
The battle must be between him and me. You must all leave, now, and finish your quest.
Dion hurriedly gave Richard rough directions to Sorcerer's Falls and warned him to take care. Then she rose like a fireball into the sky. Dagmar saw her immediately and bellowed his fury in a flash of flame. Once again, the heavens exploded as the two enemies locked in mortal combat. "Come on," Richard said. "Dion's given us our chance. We must take it." The three headed across the mountainside, following Dion's directions. Behind them, the sky rang with the sound of battle. Even when they were still out of earshot, a lurid glow showed that the fight was still in full swing. At first, the companions were able to follow the path that led across the slope from the bridge. After a while, the path petered out, leaving the trio to cross fields of yellow stone. They fell into a steady marching rhythm, and soon they were standing within sight of a craggy outcrop. At its center rose a flat-topped cone. Far off they could hear the thunder of falling water. Richard felt he had an intimate knowledge of the land ahead. "That's Sorcerer's Falls," he said. In their excitement, the trio failed to notice that they were no longer alone. It was Orkin who first heard the heavy beat of wings and looked up to see a dark shape coming at them from out of the sun. "Run!" he shouted. "Dagmar's back!" Their pursuer had already thudded down on the ground, enveloping them with an acrid stench of burning. It was not Dagmar, as Orkin had supposed. It was Dion. A Dion quite unlike the flamboyant creature who had saved them by the bridge. Her brilliant feathers were scorched. In places they had burned off altogether, leaving patches of red, weeping skin. Her face was a dishevelled mask, out of which peered two bloodshot eyes. "Are you all right?" Richard asked in dismay.
I'll be okay,
Dion replied with a wry smile.
Dagmar's dead, but he almost finished me off too. I'll rest here for a while, then get back to the Ancestral City to get my wounds taken care of.
"Don't worry," Richard said. "We can hear Sorcerer's Falls from here."
Be on your guard,
Dion warned.
and good luck to you.
The three bade farewell to the stricken firebird and walked towards the sound of running water. They opted for walking the relatively flat glen that encompassed the outcrop. If, as Richard thought, there was a river running off the crag, they would meet it in the glen and follow it up to its source, Sorcerer's Falls. The river, when it came, ran deep and raucous out of the mountain, spewing from the rocky slice that it had carved over centuries into the stony soil. The trio followed its course uphill, until round a corner they found themselves face to face with Sorcerer's Falls. From high above their heads, water sluiced down in a torrential downpour to shatter against a jumbled pile of rocks at the waterfall's base. The spray-filled air was ribboned with shifting rainbows, and the noise was deafening. The three could see no way of getting through the waterfall. They stared up the wet, white precipice with sinking hearts. Richard gazed at the fall's upper lip, where the river tumbled into thin air. Specks of water spattered into his face. He was overcome by a sense of utter despair. He concentrated hard, trying to pick up any message that Golan might be sending him. There was nothing. The prophecy was right. Evil ruled the day. And that is the end of book number 23. Only 3 more to go. So how did you go with the challenge for this issue? Shumi and Shubi appeared twice, once on page 353 and again on page 366. The fragment of the Evil One's mask was located on page 364. Now, I thought it was here in this dark shadow, but this formation in the rocks looks oddly like his teeth. Let me know what you think in the comments below. The clue for which life force pod Richard found was also on page 366. Richard felt he had an intimate knowledge of the land ahead. Richard had found the pod of knowledge. Don't forget to download the Magic and Monsters cards that came with this issue and see if you can guess who Dagmar is based on, and I'll reveal the answer in the next episode. Also, in the description is a link to this issue's map piece and the next letter token for the Power of Evil challenge. Thanks so much for watching. I can't wait to see you all again in the next episode. It's one of my favorites. So, until next time, as always, stay tuned and stay Skullbrained.